Okay, here we go again. So we just have 3 problems to do. So here's our first problem. We got 2x minus 7 over x minus 5 less than or equal to 3. Now, just like before, we had the product of two factors. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to do the quotient of two factors. So we want to try to make this whole situation here into one fraction, just with one numerator, one denominator, and make sure that it's less than or equal to 0 so we can set up our sign chart. So we're going to swing the 3 over onto the other side. So we're going to have 2x minus 7 over x minus 5 minus 3 less than or equal to 0. So we need a common denominator, and obviously that common denominator is going to be x minus 5. So we're going to have 2x minus 7 over x minus 5 minus 3 times x minus 5 over x minus 5. Again, is still less than or equal to 0. And then we're going to multiply the 3 through, or we can multiply the negative 3 through, and we'll do 2x minus 7 over x minus 5. I think I'll just extend that. And I'm going to do the negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. And the negative 3 times negative 5 is plus 15, less than or equal to 0. And just combine the stuff here. So 2x minus 3x is negative x. And negative 7 plus 15 is plus 8 over x minus 5 less than or equal to 0. And again, now we're going to set up our little sign chart. And we now know that 8 is going to be one of our critical numbers because negative 8 plus 8 is going to be 0 in the numerator. And positive 5 will also be a critical number because it'll make the denominator equal to 0. So those are going to be our two critical numbers. And so those are 5 and 8. So we set up our little sign chart over here. And we'll do our little number line. So we got 5 and we got 8. And we got, I'm going to do x minus 5. And I'm going to do 8 minus x. And I want to make sure I have my regions here. I didn't do a very good job of spacing that out, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to pick a number that's smaller than 5, such as 0. 0 minus 5 is negative 5, so I got negative. And I'm going to put 0 in here. 8 minus 0 is 8, so that's positive. And a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And I know that I flipped these upside down, but I don't think it really matters. And then we pick a number between 5 and 8, such as 6. 6 minus 5 is positive. 8 minus 6 is positive, and positive divided by positive is positive. And over here, anything past 8, such as 9. 9 minus 5 is 4, so that's positive. 8 minus 9 is negative, and then when we divide those, we're going to get a negative. And we're looking to be less than or equal to 0, so that means negative, so we have these two regions here. So we have x is less than or equal to 5, or x is greater than or equal to 8. Now, I do want to call your attention to this thing right here, as I look at this fraction right here. We know that x cannot be equal to 5, so as we go over to here, we recognize that we can't use an equal sign here, so we have to just use strictly less than. So x is less than 5, or x is greater than or equal to 8. So there is our first quotient problem. Again, same as the product problems, only we're just dividing instead. So here is our next problem that we're going to work on. And I just want to make sure I got my boundaries here. So I'll go past where I need to go past here. That should keep me where I'm supposed to be. All right, so here's our next problem. So we got 5 over x minus 6 is greater than 3 over x plus 2. And again, I want to bring this over here so we can have one fraction. So I got 5 over x minus 6 minus 3 over x plus 2 is greater than 0. And then we need to make a common denominator, which is just going to be the product of these two. So I'm going to have 5 times x plus 2, or 5x plus 10, minus 3 times x minus 6 is 3x minus 18, And our common denominator is just the product of those two things, x minus 6 and x plus 2. X minus 6, x plus 2. And then combining the like terms by subtraction, so 5x minus 3x is 2x, and 10 minus negative 18 is plus 28 over x minus 6, x plus 2. And we can see now that our critical numbers are going to be 6 from the denominator, negative 2 from the denominator, and negative 14 from the numerator. So those are going to be our three critical numbers here. So we're going to have four regions in our number line. So we get negative 14 there, and we got negative 2, and we got 6. And we also have three factors, and those are 2x plus 28, and x minus 6, and x plus 2. And again, we're just going to choose numbers from the locations on the number line, the regions. So we're going to choose a number less than negative 14, such as, well, negative 15. So 2 times negative 15 is negative 30, plus 28 is a negative number. And negative 14 minus 6 is negative 20, negative number, and negative 14 plus 2 is a negative number. And a negative times a negative, I'm just doing the denominator here. Negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And then I choose a number between negative 14 and negative 2, such as negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, plus 28 is a positive number. Negative 3 minus 6 is a negative number. And negative 3 plus 2 is a negative number. And again, we have the denominator down here. Negative times negative is positive, and positive divided by positive is positive. Somewhere between negative 2 and 6, such as 0. So this is going to be positive here, negative here, negative here, and positive there. And we have a positive divided by a negative, or a negative. And these guys over here, bigger than 6, so all these guys are going to be positives. And again, we go back to the beginning problem here. At the beginning of the problem, we're looking for anything bigger than 0, so that's positive. So that's between 14, or negative 14 and negative 2. So we write negative 14. Negative 14 is less than x is less than negative 2, or x is greater than 6. So those are the two regions that satisfy our conditions. And then the last problem we have is a domain problem. So we want to find the domain for this expression, the square root of x squared minus 8x plus 15. Now, in order for this to be a real number, the square root of this thing, this piece here inside has to be something positive. So, or 0 is fine. So we want to make sure then that x squared minus 8x plus 15 is greater than or equal to 0. And now we're back to what we did in class. So we're just going to factor this bit right here. So we're going to have x minus 5 and x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. And we have our two critical numbers, which are 3 and 5. We have our factors, which are x minus 3 and x minus 5. And we choose a number less than 3, such as 0. So that'll be negative, negative, and we're multiplying them, so that gets us a positive. Somewhere between 3 and 5, such as 4. 4 minus 3 is positive, but that's negative, and multiply them and we get negative. This is positive, positive, and positive. We're looking for greater than or equal to 0, so we have two regions. So we have x is less than or equal to 3, or x is greater than or equal to 5. And this is our domain. And we don't need to worry about denominator being 0 because there are no denominators here. So your mission, Jim, is page 204, 39 to 49, the odd ones. and then 55 to 60, all of them. I will see you tomorrow.